My name is Parran Collery, and I'm a tile artist. I live here in Southern Maryland, and this is my studio. I make relief sculpted decorative ceramic tiles. They are used primarily as works of art in people's homes. Sometimes they are installed in kitchens or bathrooms, things like that. So it is functional tile, but it's also very decorative and very beautiful. So I went to college for art, and I ended up doing graduate school for sculpture. And then I had a hard time finding a job for a number of years. But eventually I made my way to a small tile studio where they made a lot of tile that was used in people's homes and also commercial field tile. And I learned a lot there. I worked there for a number of years, and eventually I was ready to start doing my own designs. And at that same time, my parents down here in Southern Maryland had opened our house where I grew up as a gallery. So it was a perfect timing for me to open my business and start making my own handmade tile designs while my parents had a gallery here and my studio was out back. So it was a nice synergy and a great opportunity for me to have some support while I was starting my business and getting to move back home to Southern Maryland. When I went to school and then graduate school, I focused on sculpture and making larger three-dimensional projects. But when I was finally able to get a job that was in an arts field, it was at this ceramic tile studio. And that became a great opportunity for me to incorporate my interest in making sculptural pieces with having a product that people can use in their homes. So sculpture and fine art, I think, can be a little bit distancing from people. It's a little harder for people to access in their own lives. But having a small individual piece of art, a piece of tile that you can use in your home, makes it more accessible. So I started to think of myself more as a craftsperson, working in the craft field of ceramic arts, and less thinking of myself as a fine artist. And for me, the distinction is about accessibility and usability of the pieces that a person makes. So jewelry, woodwork, ceramics, glass, those are things that we can use in our homes, that we can really embrace in our lives. And for me, that gives me more connection to the people who enjoy my work. And that is how I ended up working with ceramic tile. So this is a project that I'm working on for Frederick County. It's a public art project. I have won a grant to make a series of sculptures that will be installed in 5 different towns in Frederick County. And these are the forms that I've built that will hold a mosaic surface on them. So back there on the wall, you can see the designs, the drawn designs for the 5 different sculptures. And the way that these will work will be that they will have a mosaic surface that covers the entire surface of the design. This particular piece will be kinetic, so this particular piece will also have a bike wheel that is functioning and turns. That's a part of the design. And this particular piece is going in a community that has a very big bike riding culture, so I wanted to include the bicycle wheel as part of that design. So as I have continued to develop my career as an artist here in Southern Maryland, I've been fortunate to do a number of public art projects, including, and my first one was the bench project in Leonardtown. It's called the Naturalists Bench, and it is right outside of Town Hall in Leonardtown. It's a beautiful 3-dimensional, fully functional bench that has a fully mosaic surface. And as I said, that piece was the first public art project that I did receive here in Southern Maryland. I've also done a project in Denton, Maryland, which is a very large mural mosaic. And then this is the third piece, which will be in Frederick. So for my inspiration, when I started making art when I was in grad school, I spent a lot of time thinking about modern art and postmodern art, feminism, gender issues, and my art was really focused on those kinds of things, making large, sort of thought-based sculptures. But as I have transitioned to working with clay and working in this Southern Maryland environment, my focus has really narrowed down to be nature inspired. So I spend a lot of time walking and looking at the everyday things that are around me all the time. Birds, butterflies, bugs, leaves, nuts and berries, all the little things that we see every day in our lives. Those are the things that primarily inspire me at this point. Many of the pieces that I make in the studio are production pieces. In other words, I make an original and then make a plaster press mold, and from that mold I'm able to press pieces and make multiples. But this project that I'm working on right now is a series of one-of-a-kind pieces that are being incorporated in a sculpture project. And so these pieces were just sculpted by me. There was no mold made, and right now we're going to do some glazing. So with the pieces, I always do the background first, and if you've ever done glazing when you were at school, you might remember that you kind of paint one coat and then a second coat and then a third coat on, but I don't do that. Instead, I do this sort of dribbling, pouring method, and I get that glaze on really thick as possible, which is how I get my bright, juicy colors. And the glazes that I use are all my own formulas, so they are unique to my artwork. Nobody else has these colors. And glazing is a chemical process, so unlike paint, the color that you see now is not the color that the piece will be when it's finished. So this color that we're glazing now ends up this darker blue color, and that happens in the kiln process. So the backgrounds get put on first, nice and thick. And then we'll do a little bit of the detail glazing. So once the glaze dries really quickly, and once it's dry, I can just clean it off of the areas where I don't want it. And then, let's get a good brush. Let's try this brush. And then we're going to go in and do the details. And with this particular color, this yellow, I like to add sort of some more dimension to the color. So I'll put one color on, and then I'll switch to a second color and add that second color, which makes things a little bit more as they are in nature. So a little bit less of a one note and a little bit more of a medley of colors, which I think is more how things are in the real world. And then we just repeat this process. Okay, so here we are down in the basement where I have my kiln, and also where I have some space to set stuff out. These are all of the finished pieces that I've been producing, working my way through the process of sculpting them, and then they get fired one time, as you saw upstairs, glazed, and then fired a second time, and then once they come out the second time, this is what they look like. So this is sort of the collection of everything I've made so far for the Frederick project. And these pieces will be mosaicked onto the surface of those forms.